come out and post the link to you guys via the medium of a second laptop. One moment. Good morning. I think I got a couple of people now. Hooray. And you can see my screen, which is brilliant. Just typical that I practiced this like a couple of times last night and it worked fine, and then you go and do it for real and it completely breaks. Okay, so hope you've all had a lovely break. Looking forward to coming back in a couple of days. I know I am. Right, so your exam's on Wednesday, and let's turn that music off. And I've asked you, well, I asked you if you wanted to submit a couple of ideas, for which you have given me the good old classic of copyright, trademarks and intellectual property. Now, I know that caused some confusion when we did it in class. And you don't need to know too much in depth. Basically, you need to be aware of it. In fact, this is what it asks you to know. So, legislation, including copyright, intellectual property. So intellectual property is basically property that belongs to you. I haven't actually asked you guys if you can actually hear me. I could just be talking to a brick wall, seeing as none of you have commented yet apart from let's go. So if you can hear me, just say you can hear me so I can actually see. Oh good, thank you. I actually know who that is. Who is that? Everyone else has got their name. Excellent, lovely. Who is, I'm not even going to try and say it. Who is that? In the, oh, is it Mega Man? Can't quite see the thing. Oh, hi Jacob, you're right. Anyway, so yes, let's carry on. So, copyright is automatic, so you don't have to apply for copyright. It is denoted by this copyright symbol that I'm sure you've all seen many times before. Everyone gets it, typically used by writers and authors. However, it tends to expire. So you probably have heard that like books by Charles Dickens and the Brontes and stuff like that tend to be in the open domain, public domain, which means that anyone can use them. A classic one actually is the old Alice in Wonderland, if I can find on my... so Alice in Wonderland illustrations. So these... oh, don't know who that is. So these original illustrations, because they were drawn so long ago, now anyone can use them. So you tend to find people like muscling in on things like that. It's probably why there's been like a vintage revival, because you can use these completely free at the moment. However, if we were back in, I think this was like early 1900s, you wouldn't be able to just use them, or the copyright was a little bit hit and miss then. So you can use these now for free. Don't have to pay for them because they are now in the public domain, which means anyone can use them. So, intellectual property, nice and easy one, that one. So it's a piece of work. So it can be written, it can be logos, it can be drawings. It can also be ideas. So you may hear people getting patents, or if anyone here watches Dragon's Den, you always hear like the first thing the dragon says, "Have you patented this idea?" Essentially, that basically means you can write and... I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head of what you could... Say you created a new type of lid for a bottle that was a diamond shape and did something to the fizz that stopped it from going flat. You could actually write, even though you've not made it yet, you can write to have the idea that nobody else can create a diamond-shaped bottle topper that other people could use. Brilliant idea. I don't actually know if that will work, so don't try and steal it. Well, you can steal it if you want to. It probably wouldn't be worth much. Royalty free. Now this is something that most designers love. Royalty free means that you can use it without having to pay anything to any designers. Now you may have, well, in fact you have used this when we're doing our work. So R082, royalty free illustration, I mean classic one here. So royalty free illustrations, some of them, like this one for example, you have to pay for. So plans and pricing, you have to pay, there you go, £65 a month to use this, and then you can use the stuff for free. So essentially designers will add their work here. Typically it tends to be images, and you sign up, use their images, and then they get paid a cut of it by these companies. You won't need to know this stuff in detail, but that is royalty free. You can also get things such as free pick, ones we use at school, that are legitimately free. So some of these, apart from the ones with the crown, they usually have a premium option. But for example, if I wanted this, oh yes, year of the rat this year, isn't it? If you wanted to use this free, it's completely free. So this here, attribution is required. Now that is the key here. So attribution is when you give somebody, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Oh, my brain's gone dead. Hello. Yeah, so attribution is when you give somebody notice that you're using their work. God, my brain's gone completely fluffed. So what it means is, there you go, for example, imagefreebit.com. So that, for example, is where you give somebody credit, but you don't have to pay them. And it's typically the way, if you're using this at home and you're creating, I don't know, some art for your own YouTube channel or something, you wouldn't need to. So it'll typically say here, see, it's got a license. So free for personal and commercial purpose with attribution. So personal means you can use it however you want. So I can take this rat and put it in with something else. I can put it in with this Chinese New Year thing. However, if I want to use it commercially, and by commercially, hi Max, commercially means that you're going to sell it, you're going to make t-shirts, you're going to make other things, you would need to say that you've got it from freepick.com, and it may in some cases give you the offer. I'll tell you what, let's click and download, so I'll show you what it does. Free download. So usually it says on this thing, so this one you just have to attribute Freepick, but sometimes they'll be actually by other authors. Whoopsie. So Freepick themselves are an author in this case, but they do have other users who can upload stuff. See here, become a contributor. So if you're good with art, you can start earning money selling your creations. Be good fun. So that is attribution. I've lost my page completely now. Okay, don't worry, it's not going to be me talking about you. I will also show you how these will come up in exams as well. There's 9 people watching now. Hello, everyone else who's being very quiet. Okay, so it doesn't just cover images. It also covers books, movies, music. So we've used royalty-free sound effects before. Royalty-free sound effects. There you go. So free sound, audio blocks, images. So people, a lot of people do like to give away their stuff for free. Some people just do it for the love of creating things. I mean, somebody sat there at their like electronic keyboard, you know, bashing out some tunes, and then they just decide to let people download it. Usually that's just because they're nice. Sometimes they do it to get their name found by bigger companies. Naturally, if Disney or I was going to say Marvel, but they are Disney now. Basically Disney, because they own everything nowadays. Decide they like your music, that might elevate your status and you might get famous. But obviously if you're doing this as a job, you'll probably want to sell it, and that is where copyright comes in, because choking, oh dear, sorry. My apologies. Right, copyright. So if, for example, you don't want to give it away royalty free, as you will well know, you will have to, people will have to get permission to use your stuff. This is a classic exam question. Let me see if I've got one open. So your typical exam question is, X company wants to use images found online. What will they need to do before they can use them? Okay, and typically on there you will have, for example, they will need to, this is usually a 2-marker question, and it will take some sort of format, because as you, 2-mark question. As you're aware from doing your mock exams before, usually you'll get a scenario that covers the whole of the exam paper. So they will need to seek permission from the artist or whatever it is, and be prepared to pay, or give attribution. Trying to spell. Okay, so that is your typical question on this sort of thing. It won't go into too much detail. I'm so sorry, I keep choking. Right, so we covered royalty free. Trademarks. Now, a few of you struggled with trademarks. You can see here there's two trademark symbols. Trademark, which is not registered, and R, which is a registered trademark. Typically, these are used by companies. So, for example, let's have a look at McDonald's. Is a classic one. McDonald's trademarks. Oh, here you go. They're trying to claim that a MUC. As you can imagine, lots of companies probably want to muscle down on the MUC. A bit like Apple with their I. Loads of people want to call everything an I this and I that. So you can't automatically trademark everything. But, for example, the McDonald's... Here we go. So, McDonald's logo with the R, you can't use that. You could say Munchie Burger, but you couldn't put Munchie Burger in an M. It's actually quite a nice example. So you can call something a Munchie Burger. You can't call it a Munchie Burger and use the golden arches. And this is McDonald's brand design. So this is what they have registered. That means that you can't use that. So a company couldn't set up a golden arches, it's called, the McDonald's logo, without getting sued by McDonald's. So just finding random things off the internet. The joy of Google searches. Macca's, for example, I know this is actually, I think, a joke on a McDonald's thing, but you couldn't set up a company called Macca's and use the logo like that. You could create something called Muck something else. I think McDowell's, I think that was from a 1980s film coming to America. You could do that. They would probably say that it's quite similar, so you would get in trouble for it. But there's nothing wrong with you doing that, technically. Likewise, this Supermax, you could do that even though Mac is a trademark, not a trademark, a meal in McDonald's. Okay, so that is trademarks. Now, trademarks give you protection. So you have to pay to register them. And once they belong to you, typically businesses use them to protect their logos or any words. Like I'm loving it, I think is a trade. Yeah, there you go. I'm loving it. It's a trademark. So that means that another company, if they go to use it, I know there's rumours out here that like in everyday use, if you say the word, then they can arrest you. Obviously, they're not going to do that. But if a company tries to muscle in, so you decide to open a shop next door to McDonald's, and you're going to call it, I don't know, McWhitstables, and you decide to do those arches but make them red, reverse the design, that would not be allowed. However, you could have a shop called McWhitstables, but you couldn't say I'm loving it either. So it'll always be categorised by this by the R or the TM. That's all you need to know. That in terms of trademarks, registered, the R and the TM are for trademarks, and the C is just copyright. And as we covered before, copyright is automatic, so you'll always automatically get copyright. Okay, how are we all doing? It's all gone very quiet in the chat. Creative Commons. Okay, so those of you who are in my year 10 class will know we always come up with this scenario of Harry selling his face on t-shirts. Harry is doing a roaring trade by setting his t-shirts to be sold, but he's getting a little bit annoyed by the fact that everyone is asking him every day to see if they can use his t-shirts. So Creative Commons is an agreement, this says here, set by the creator. Hello, glad you're still here, Jacob. And it allows you to use those resources. There's two different types, and there's CC BY, so Creative Commons BY, which means you can use it, but you need to quote the source. So you can use Harry's face on stuff, but you need to say that you got it from Harry. Harry can come after you and he can sue you. So that is generally all you need to know about copyright. Now, when it comes to exams, as I said, we've kind of done the typical exam paper here, that you need to seek permission. Some other things they might ask you are, they might give you a scenario of, this is a brand's logo, which would it be covered by, which legislation would it be covered by? And then it might have the logo on it, so you might have to look for the logo in the bottom corner, and that, for example, would say whether it was copyright, trademark, etc. But generally, if this is going to come up in the exam, it's not going to be a massive question, so don't stress yourself out worrying about it if you're a bit confused. The stream keeps buffering. I do apologise. Probably my internet at home. I have kicked my child and husband out, so they're not gaming, so hopefully it won't be too bad. And again, this will record hopefully, so afterwards if you have missed bits you can always go back and listen to it at your heart's content. Right, the other thing I want to have a look at is scripts. We've not gone too much into these example scripts. Now, as I said to you before, I will never ever ask you to write a script in the exam. So where you get asked to create pre-production documents such as scripts, not scripts, that's what we're not doing, mood boards, mind maps, visualization diagrams, etc. They will never ask you to make a script, which is good. They could, however, as with our famous 12-mark questions, let's try and find a good example here. I'm trying to find a very good example. Okay, this is actually probably a good one. So they would ask you to analyze one. So where you have to say, do your weighing up of strengths, weaknesses, etc. They may ask you to do that. So let's have a look here of what is typically in a script. Super tiny. This document, by the way, and I've not written much in it at the moment, but I will flesh it out and put it onto Google Classroom at the end of this. That's super. Okay, so things to note is you will always have the name of the actor or the character's name in the middle, and it will be in capital. So in this case, your actors are Annie and Ted. Okay, so the other thing you will also have on there at the beginning is a description of what's happening. So location, you have here EXT, and that's exterior, as you probably will know, just written like that, exterior. And you also have INT, which is interior. If this was instant, I probably would have asked you to do this, but it's not. Okay, and it also tells you here, so upscale modern home, i.e. a posh house, and it is nighttime. So it doesn't go into reams of detail because obviously this isn't the main pre-production document. That will probably be done in a storyboard, but it's enough so you know what's going on. The ultimate bachelor pad, a Porsche is parked in front of it. There you go. So again, it's got here fade in, so it's going to fade into this scene, but again, not masses of detail. So again, it says the first thing here, Annie, I'm so glad you called. So OS, I think, is off screen. Ted, I'm so glad you were free. Annie, I love your eyes. Okay, I've just realised that this is completely inappropriate. La la la. Let's just forget the fact that I ever said that. Okay. Whoopsie. That'll teach me right for looking at things in front. So the dialogue itself is going to be in the middle. So let's do an example here. Oh gosh, I'm trying to hide myself. The joys of doing these things live, eh? Right, so just completely focused. So you've got Annie in the middle. Let's just write something here. So we're going to do int house full of cobwebs, and it's going to fade in. Right. Okay, so the first we're going to still keep Annie and Ted because why not? So Annie is going to say, I'm going to set this to be central. Save me doing this every time. She's going to say, it's really creepy in here. Now, normally, if you were in writing using quotes in your text, you would put them in speech marks. Oops. Speech marks. There we go. Yeah. Now you can imagine with a script, its sole purpose, or one of its main purposes, is to provide the dialogue. If you did that every time there was dialogue in a script, you would have a heck of a lot of quote marks. You know it's a script, you know what it's for. You do not need to put speech marks around text. So you just do it like that. Ted, yes, I'm very scared. Okay. Then what you would also have in here, in italics usually, is some direction. Let me see if I can find an actual example that's not, you know, if I search for like Marvel or example, hopefully it won't show me anything that is, so you probably can't find it because it is copyrighted, so you probably won't be able to use it. Well, I just want to show you, okay, here's Deadpool here. Again, you see here, so you've got Deadpool. Do you think they cancelled the show because of racism? I don't actually think this is actually, I'll do very good with my examples here. Lots of swearing and stuff in them. You get the idea. So again, so you have, they always follow the same examples. I'm just going to have to quickly look at these in advance. I'll tell you what, actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Scripts. If I put in R081, one would hope that that would be something that is... here we go. Okay, so you've got the... try and find an example here that's big enough. I have no idea who these people are. Appreciate this is just copying something. So here we got here. Interior, exterior. The shot type, again, some of these won't have it on there. So this is a mid shot. You know your direction. Okay, so what's happening in the scene? Now, again, you had this in your exam. The purpose of a script is obviously to provide dialogue for the actors and the characters, but it's also for the production team. So you've got loads of camera crew and loads of stage hands trying to set up the scene. They need to know what's happening. So we hear a bell ending the round. The crowd are booing. A young boxer comes to his corner. We see his face close up. So now the camera crew and the production crew are going to know what to actually do before the people start talking. Character, again, in the middle. Dialogue. So again, intonation, loudness and emotion. So beat equals pause. V.O is voiceover. So obviously that's going to be a narrator while there's stuff going on the screen over top. Bit kind of your classical Morgan Freeman at the beginning of any film that he is in. Structure. Again, so obviously the dialogue is always in the middle. The rest of it tends to be left aligned. So interior here, gym, and it's daytime. The gym is dark and sweaty. So again, that's to help the production crew. There are 10 to 15 firefighters in the gym, all doing different things. Some are hitting the bag, some are sparring, others skipping or shadow boxing. So obviously there's no dialogue in there, so nothing needs to be in there. But obviously there's a lot happening in that scene. So that is why that's written there. So production crew know to get those extras on there, box in there, but obviously they don't have to say anything. Then again, goes back into text. So you can see, looking at this straight away, what bit is dialogue for the actors, what bit is more setting up stuff for the production team. Okay. So let's come out of that one. Apologies again for my terrible choice of script examples there. Okay, so hopefully that helps you a little bit with scripts. That was all you'd ever be asked to do. You'd be asked to say what the purpose of them are. So we covered this before. The purpose is obviously to provide dialogue for characters, but it's also to provide directions and instructions for the crew and the camera crew as well. I hope that's all right for everyone. We've gone quiet again, but that's fine. Okay, so what else was on my list? We're coming to the last thing on the list of stuff you gave me. So if you want anything you want me to cover that's not in there, it can be questions, can be anything, do put something in the chat now so I can sort of prepare myself before we actually start. The other thing that you asked to look at whilst I'm waiting is health and safety. So we had actually a good example of this in the mock you did. Again, you won't be asked to create a risk assessment or anything like that. But as you can well imagine, shooting films or TV shows can be a risky business. Particularly, for example, if you're doing something in the water. So typically in business, and this isn't just to do with the media industry as well, this happens in all sorts of industries. So for example, in my old job, when I was pregnant, they had to do a risk assessment to check that my work area was suitable for me, so it didn't do any injury to me. So it's not just limited to the media industry. So a risk assessment is basically what it says. Basically, they will look at what's going on, have a think about if there's anything in there could be a damage. So the examples you had in your mock that we did was trailing cables and lights. Now, most of you got this right actually in the exam. So lights, for example, if they are hung up, so shining down, they can get hot. So you obviously need to identify the risk. So lights can get hot. Obviously, you would go into a little bit more detail in your risk assessment, but for the purpose of the exam, and how you would mitigate, i.e. how you would fix that risk. So mitigation, make sure not to handle when hot. Whoops. Turn off when not in use. And ensure properly insulated. So you can get covers and things for them that stop, obviously. You wouldn't ever touch the plate of a thing. So lights can get hot. Now, obviously, you also need to say in there, you might say something, why is that a problem? So why is it a problem if the lights get hot? It's a problem because you might burn yourself. Okay. So this is your typical thing you'll get in there. Lights get hot, it's a problem. How would you mitigate it? Turn it off. Trailing cables. It's a problem because they are a trip hazard. Now you would have an actual document if you were doing this as a job. So mitigation, use a cable tie. Make sure they are covered or hidden away. Yep, so that's your typical thing there. Now a risk assessment form looks a little bit like something like this. Again, you wouldn't be asked to create one, but just to show you. So this is what you'd have. Event. So this is the film one itself here. Film in, date, a venue, so where it's going to be. So for films, you're going to have multiple venues, but you do one for each different one. In fact, you'll probably do one for each different room in a venue. So an actor is running. If the actor trips over something, they can hurt themselves. Who's at risk? The person. You generally weight it. Is it a high risk, a medium risk, or a low risk? And what action would be taken? And then whether that lowers or raises the risk. So obviously, if you've got cables everywhere, which you would do in a film set, that's going to be a high risk. But by ensuring that they're covered up, you're going to lower the risk. So again, you wouldn't have to create one of these, but this is why they're there. And the purpose is so that if something does happen and someone gets injured, the production company can say that they've covered themselves as best they can by doing this risk assessment. So that you would need to produce a risk assessment if you were doing this as a job. So that's risk assessments. Now, another thing they can do before this is something that is called a Recce, not a Reese's. So a Recce is where the production crew will go out and scope out venues to check how suitable they are. I always like to find the example from Doctor Who. So now, Doctor Who used to do a really good show called Doctor Who Confidential. And what they used to do, they would go out. Again, I'm not thinking this. Okay, it's not actually a lot on there. But they would go out and they would check out venues. Sorry, no, Doctor Who Confidential. They used to go out and they used to film the pre-production stuff. So it would be behind the camera. So you'd see the cast, you'd see what would happen beforehand. It'd be really good because you'd see all the pyrotechnics and stuff involved in it. It's such a shame that they cancelled it because it was really, really useful, particularly for what you're doing. So yeah, so Recce is where the members of the production team will go and check out the suitability of a film. Very, very important because obviously you need to make sure that it's got electricity, it's got running water, but also it's safety as well, particularly if you're going indoors, outdoors. So for example, I don't know if anyone's watched the new Dracula on BBC. They used a castle in Romania. So obviously that's quite a lot of scouting. So you may have to go far and wide to find the ideal place, but they are thinking about obviously what's going to look good on the film, but also its safety as well. So whether it's going to be safe. So that is the purpose of a Recce. So production crew will go and check out potential filming sites and check their suitability and safety, as well as amenities. Okay, right, so the other thing to remember on this, we're not on this anymore, is this isn't just limited to risk assessment. So risk assessment will be a form completed prior to work taking place to check for potential hazards and try to mitigate these. Obviously, sometimes you can't. So, as I said before, I know a lot of this has been talking about film production and big high-end things like that. However, it is not just limited to that. So, again, we may have covered this before, but you sitting at your desk doing the editing for a big film, you're going to be sat there for hours and hours and hours trawling through video footage. That is not going to be good for your back or your eyes, okay? So, you're going to have a workplace assessment on that one. So, things there we'll look at is chair height. So your chair needs to be ideally adjustable. Chair should be adjustable because we're not all the same height. And for example, you need to have your eyes ideally should be in line with the top of your monitor. So the top of the eye line of your monitor. You would to place your eye level at the top of the monitor. Your chair should swivel. Should swivel. I know ours don't in school, but I don't think we're tied by the same things. But this is people who do like work for computers as a desk job. So chair should swivel. What else should happen? Your keyboard. You should have a keyboard. Keyboard. So it should be your arms should be positioned so that your elbows are just sort of hanging on the edge. So you should be able to have your hands should be positioned so your forearms are stretched out. Again, you won't need to know all of this, but this is the sort of thing that would be covered in it. So your keyboard should be positioned, so you shouldn't have to be like hunched over. You should be up straight. So the back of your chair back should be adjustable. This is sometimes called lumbar support. Don't know if anyone's heard about that before. So on some fancy chairs, you have a little like puffer thing that you can. I think Mr. Mustavi's room used to have one of those. A little puffer squeezy thing that would push out the back. So it's called lumbar support, which supports the arch of your back. So again, very important for people who are in desk jobs for a long time. Okay, the other thing, eyes, eye checks. So if you're in a job and predominantly your work involves looking at computers all day, the company should, in most cases, have an obligation to provide you with eye tests. So in my old job, I got an eye test voucher. I used to be able to go and have an eye test. And if it was found that I needed glasses for doing my work, my company would pay a percentage of it. I mean, they don't have to, but you do need to make sure you have regular eye checks to reduce the risk of eye strain. And as we all know, but don't often regularly do, take breaks. Most of these can be covered by taking breaks. Take regular breaks to prevent eye strain. Now, in an exam, how might this be presented to you? So you've had the typical one of what can you do to minimise the risk of eye strain, back strain, etc. The other thing, of course, one I haven't completely forgot to cover, RSI, repetitive strain. Oh dear, that's spelled terribly. Repetitive. There we go. Strain injury. So that is typically in your wrists. Tends to be if you use a mouse or if you're a gamer, something like that. It's quite a typical painful thing you have in your wrist. So that is a classic injury associated with working at a desktop all the time. Yeah, so this will be the thing. So typically your answers for this one will be take regular breaks. God, I can't spell today. Take regular breaks. Make sure that you get your eyes tested. Ensure your equipment is at appropriate height. The other thing you can do, for example, so I worked in a building in Canterbury, which was affectionately known as a glass prison. So they designed it to be a work of art, and it was all glass, which was great because it was beautiful to look at. However, when the sun was out, which happens quite a lot in this world, the glare used to get in there was horrific. So you can get anti-glare screen protectors. And obviously, although this isn't always the case, move your equipment to a suitable. Now, when you're surrounded by glass, that's not broken glass, by the way, but to a suitable location. So obviously, if you can, put it somewhere where it's not going to be so much of an issue. If you're working with lots of people, naturally, they can be an issue as well. So if you're in like a kitchen area, you've got issues with heat and smells and stuff like that, but you're not going to have to go into too much detail. So all you're generally going to need to know is how you can cover. Let me see, I think I had one of the exam papers open earlier. Here we go. So which one have I got here? No, not that one. Let's have a look. As a note, actually, you guys, I don't know if you know this or not, there's some eyes. Hello, eyes. You guys can look at any, apart from the last year, exam papers. So you search in Google, Creative iMedia. First thing that comes up, so it's OCR is our exam board. Creative iMedia. Okay, if we scroll down here, you have got past papers, mark schemes, example answers, and I appreciate a lot of you don't want to sit and trawl through exam papers. However, you've got here question papers, mark schemes, and reports. So this is open to the public. I don't have to be logged in to do this. Now, the recent series, so this is from June, you can't go in here. See, these are marked by a padlock, so you can't log on to these ones. But any of the others from 2018 onwards, you can absolutely look at the question paper, the mark scheme, and you probably wouldn't have to look at the examiner's report. It's just basically them summarising how everyone did. So November, for some reason, you only got the examiner report. So for most of them, you've got the question paper, mark scheme, question paper, mark scheme. So generally, you'll have a range of questions. So let's see. I think, is this the one you guys just did? No. You'll probably remember it. So Worst on the Planet, we've all looked at this one before. Let's have a little look. Okay, so this one has got about storyboards. This one talks about target audience. Assume you're all okay with target audience. Okay, so trademark here. So this is a classic example. What does a trademark symbol used when it is used with the campaign's name? So Words from the Planet is going to be trademarked. So that means that the words, the phrase itself, Words from the Planet, has been trademarked by this company. That means that other companies would not be able to use it, and it belongs to that company. So the Words from the Planet campaign will use images taken from space. The copyright of these images is held by the space. So, okay, this is your typical copyright question. What steps must be taken? So it's literally word for word of what we said. So, again, I can't really see your answers or anything on here. In fact, I've just realised I've got it on top chat rather than live chat. Live chat. There we go. Okay. Sorry if I've missed anything on there. Okay, so yeah, on this one, it'll be a classic thing of Words from the Planet need to approach the space organisation and ask for permission to use these images and be prepared to pay. So you'll all be okay with that one. So this is your typical creating a mood board. Key thing about these big questions is you do not need to draw the images. So in our mock one, there was one person who literally, bless them, tried to draw each of the images in there. You don't need to do that. It will say it if you need to. You just need to choose them and justify them. Okay, so this is a script example. So here we go. Exterior, edge of the forest, at foot of mountain, camera flies in towards presenter walks to camera. So in this one, interestingly, they've not put the presenter in the middle. I would have thought, in fact, is this what it's asking for? Aha, that's why. Okay, so this one is actually asking for you to, interestingly, this one's only worth 7, so usually it's worth 12. Layout, fitness. Okay, no, because this isn't the, yeah, so layout and fitness. Okay, so this is, doesn't happen all that often. So again, in this one, it's asking you to look at how suitable it is. And whether it's suitable. So again, I've put here, so the presenter should be center aligned, the text should be center aligned. Yeah, so on this one, EXT should be capitals. That's fine. Camera flies in towards presenter. You may possibly ask for them to clarify a little bit more about what they mean by flies in. Presenter, walking in circle. So walking in circle would be put separately. Voiceover would just be abbreviated to VO. And again, you wouldn't have the ... A man and bear begin to compete. You would just have the text as it is. So there's a few things on there you can include, but that's a good example of, so this is the June 2018 one. So if you are looking at scripts, have a look at that one. Create a mind map. So again, this one's got quite a lot on scripts. So if you do want to have a look at scripts, the 2018 one is a good one to have a look at for that. But I was trying to find anything. Okay, this has got file formats. You guys should be absolute whizzes at that now after doing your R082. So what file format is best for print versus what one's suitable for web? If any of you know that, put it in the chat now. So which one would you use for print? Which one would you use for web? And I'll come back to that one in a minute. Don't worry, I'm not going to embarrass you if you get it wrong. This is practice. Okay, and then your last one on here is your good old 12 mark questions, which I know you guys love so much. So this one actually hasn't got anything in it about health and safety. Typically, you would have one in there. And typically, it would cover, for example, how would you mitigate this risk? Or what are the risks of cable? What are the risks of sitting in your desk too long? So, coming back to this one. I'm still waiting to see if anyone's going to answer on this one. I'm not sure what the delay is on it. So does anyone know what would the file format be for print? I'll give you two options. I would say one is going to be, in fact, I'll give you three options. So you're going to have PNG, JPEG, and TIFF. Which one would you use for print and which one would you use for web? Anyone gonna step up and chat? I don't know if there's an issue with the stream or whether you have all just gone to sleep or whether you're all just a bit scared to answer. Not sure. Okay, nobody's saying it. Oh, there we go. Excellent. Web, JPEG, printed, TIFF. Excellent. Well done, Jacob. Yes, very much so. Yep. Justification on here. Again, it's worth 6 marks. So likely you're going to get 1 mark for the file format and 2 marks for your justification. So printed, the things I'm going to be looking at on here is whether it is, because obviously for printed it's going to be high resolution and you're going to want it to be non-compressed. So that'll be your justification there. Web graphic needs to be a lower resolution, needs to load quickly on the web, so it will need to be compressed. So that'll be your answer for that one. Okay, so that covers the things you guys have asked me to look at. Is there anything else you want me to look at before I let you all go for the day? Just let me know on here. If not, I will release you back into the wild. And if you do need anything else before the exam, do let me know. But is there anything else you want to look at before we go and enjoy this lovely sunny weather today? Just waiting for the lag to pick up on this. Okay, not seeing anything on here. You guys are going super quiet on me, which is fine. Okay, right. Well, if you do, obviously we can cover it. So year 11s, you've got obviously time this week. I think you've got a whole day. Thanks for taking time. That's very kind. No problem at all. I have nothing better to do with my life. Okay, so if you do need anything else, do email me or message me. That form is still live on Google as well, so don't feel like you need to say anything in front of everyone else. If not, like I say, those exam papers are there for you. I can post the link onto Google Classroom, actually. In fact, I'll probably do that. I'll post this link onto Google Classroom, so you can access these anytime without any issue. I'm sure you will be fine for the exam. I know it's first week back, which is a little bit mean, but I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. You've done so well in your mock, so I'm really proud of how well all of you have done in this one. So I will just bid you farewell, and also apologies again for my horrific choice of script. That will go down in history as one of the biggest muck-ups of a live stream ever. Anyway, have a lovely day. I will see you all next week. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. And I'm going to cause an infinite loop in a minute while I try to stop this stream. So see you later. Bye.